So welcome everybody, and so good to see you, Leonard. We've talked on the phone, but I haven't seen you. And actually, the last time I saw you was when we were both in. Well, I was going in to teach, and you were at San Quentin, and it's wonderful to have Stephanie with us. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So I'm going to kind of guide us through this, but I want it to be a comfortable conversation. So for everybody who's here, the connection that we all have is through Leonard. He was a program participant of mine at San Quentin for at least 2 years, maybe longer than that. And then upon his release, he connected with Steph in San Luis Obispo and became part of the Sangha, the yoga community at Steph's studio in San Luis Obispo. And he's recently relocated to Oakland, so he's not in San Luis Obispo now. But I thought I'd start, because most people are really interested in this, and that is, Leonard, if you could just say a little bit about yourself and about how much time you spend incarcerated, and then if you could talk about what the yoga program meant to you while you were incarcerated.
Hi, my name is Leonard Brown, and so I paroled April the 25th, 2022 of this year after serving going 32 years and 6 months and 5 days. So and I'm just, I just have abundance of gratitude. I have abundance of gratitude having made it through that incarceration experience. When I got out, I caught the ferry, and I just remember looking back at San Quentin when the ferry was passing San Quentin, and I was, I had this big old grin on my face, but it wasn't. It was a grin. It was just, I was overwhelmed with joy and gratitude, but I realized in that moment that I wasn't bitter. That I wasn't bitter. I didn't have any resentment, and that the person that brought about my incarceration no longer existed. There was like, it was just like a brand new me stepping out. Like, and I just see life through a different set of lenses right now. Yeah, and and I'm a loyal friend. I have a sense of humor, and I'm just enjoying life, man. I'm grateful that I have a second chance at life. To write a new chapter, to author my own story. No. Yeah.
So how did you get introduced to the yoga program, and what was your experience with it, Leonard?
Oh, okay. Well, I got introduced to the yoga program through with Jesse Ayers. So Jesse was a student too. So Jesse told me about the yoga class, and I would see guys going into the art building, and I was like, hey, they going to the yoga class, and I was like, yoga is for sissies,
Yeah.
What I mean? Because I always thought, I would see magazines and see commercials, people doing yoga, and I'm like, man, I don't waste my time with no yoga, man. And so, but I just asked me to go over there, and so I ended up just going in one day, and that's when I first met you. And then I think the class was full at the time, but I think the roster was full, but the class itself wasn't full. So you let me sit in. You let me sit in, join in the class, and then I did it. And then I remember going back to the cell, and I was like, man, I was stretched muscles I didn't even know I had. And I think that day we did some sun salutation, and it was like, man, I was like, when I got back, man, I was like, man, it felt like I worked out with some weights. But the next day though, immediately I noticed the difference. I mean, the very next day when I got up, my body was refreshed, and my mind was focused, my mind was clear, and I was like, man, just in that little bit right there. And so then I started coming back. I started coming back, to yoga, but then of course you already know, COVID hit. Yeah, COVID hit. So.
Yeah, I wonder if you and I were in touch with each other during COVID, and when the prison was shut down, and you had written me, and I had written you also, and I don't think people can fully understand the impact of what happened at San Quentin during the COVID epidemic, the height of it. It's still going on, but 28 incarcerated people died at San Quentin, and one correctional officer. And I wonder if you could share from your own experience of what it was like.
I mean, in prison, over the years, you get used to facility lockdowns, institutional lockdowns for different reasons, inclement weather, maybe an incident on the yard or something like that. You're going to lock down for a couple of months, 2 weeks, even a few months. But, those lockdowns they're pretty much predictable. You know the reason why. And, there's daylight at the end of the tunnel. You're going to come off, resume program. With COVID, no one was prepared for COVID. It was, I actually contracted COVID July the 7th, 2020. And it was just the uncertainty of what happened was that not just me, but everyone's mind switched to survival mode. You switch to survival mode, and when your brain is in survival mode, that's just what you're doing. You're surviving. You're not really living. You're just basically going on instinct, and that's a state. But the problem with that is that because we were on lockdown so long, and because we watched so many people being taken out, we stood in front of the TVs every evening around 5 o'clock, gathered around the TVs. And I was down in PIA that they converted into a treatment facility. We would look at the evening news to see who died. Who died next, what the count was. And then we saw people, outside in front of the prison, advocating for early release and stuff like that. And it was just, yeah. But the thing was that the uncertainty of the midst of being in COVID, it's like I said, my brain was in survival mode. It switched to survival mode. And then long after the thick of it was, this is like in 2022, the last part of 2021, early part of 2022, I was like, what could I do to get my mind, switch my mind my brain out of survival mode? Because I just had this anxiety. I was in a heightened state, and I was like, and I remember, yoga. I remember I could do yoga, and we were able to get a few classes in, but then we could never get any momentum because we would get shut down again. And it was like, I tried doing it in the field in that little small space. And so it was just, it became a bit frustrating because I wasn't able to, to really practice it like I wanted to. And then, so I kind of just stopped yoga for I think in the beginning of right around probably February 2022. I just kind of wasn't doing it. And I was just focusing on my release that was coming up in April. And when I paroled, when I got out, it's funny because I had talked to you, and we had spoken, and you had sent me a letter, and I remember I was downtown slow, and I saw a young lady with a yoga mat. She was walking with a yoga mat, and I was like, and I said, "Excuse me, miss." I was like, I don't want to sound weird or anything. I said, are you going to yoga? Are you coming from yoga? And she was like, "Yeah, I'm going to the yoga center." So I said, "Well," she's like, "Well, it's just up here." And so she's like, "If you want to, you can follow me up there." So I went. I didn't go in though. I just went to the center and I just took a mental picture, okay, of the address. Okay, here's where it's at. And then I came back the following week, and I went up there and I talked with I think with Matt, and I was saying, how do you join? I didn't even know that was Stephanie's studio at the time. I think when I called you and I asked you, "Hey, is there any yoga community down there?" And I think I told you, "Yeah, I found this center downtown," and you was like, "Yeah, that's." So that's funny how Spirit works. Is that Spirit just took me straight to Stephanie. Yeah. So and that was like that was huge because I had been missing that, and once I found that community, I was like, every weekend I basically did what I had to do to get over there.
Yeah, it's such a fortuitous series of events. Stephanie, I wanted to ask you, how your whole experience, and I'd like you to tell everybody your involvement with Prison Yoga Project, and then how you connected with Leonard and how your friendship has continued.
Yeah. Yeah, Leonard, I didn't know that story of how you found the center. So I'm like blown away. It was definitely Spirit that kind of guided that connection. So thank you for sharing that story. But I got to know Bill Brown of Prison Yoga Project initially, and it was talking about hosting a training at my studio in San Luis Obispo because there was discussion about starting a program at the California Men's Colony just outside of town. And so that's how our connection and conversation started. And as we were getting into those discussions and I was learning about the organization, I was just compelled. It was sort of like it was the next step on my path. It was, of course, I want to participate in this training. And I want to be part of this group of facilitators to go in to CMC and establish a program. And I feel very fortunate to have had that opportunity. We've been at CMC for a little over 4 years, I believe. COVID time makes that feel different, but it's been about that amount of time. I think it was in July was when we started the program. And it's been an incredible experience for me on many different levels as a yoga practitioner, student, teacher, facilitator, person. So I'm very grateful to be able to be a part of it, and grateful to be having this conversation now, and just sort of all the different twists and turns. And, we talked about COVID times and the challenges that brought, and also some of the opportunities, I would say as well, because one of the most used business words was pivot during that time, but Prison Yoga Project did a really amazing job of pivoting and creating a workbook to where we could continue the practice through a correspondence course, even though we couldn't go inside and and practice together, we were still able to communicate and share yoga and practice yoga together, just in that way. So for me, it feels like it was a journey that was sort of meant to be. I felt very just compelled and led down the path, and feel that will continue to just unfold in ways that we can't even predict. And like I was saying, I didn't know this story of how Leonard got connected to the center. It was one of those where, when I think you put us in touch in an email, but he had already been taking class at the studio. And so amazing to have that happen. And so yet a new sort of connection and way to interact through this connection, shared connection of Prison Yoga Project. And yeah, I mean, I think Leonard has been just really an inspiring person that I've had the privilege to get to know, because he is so committed to his practice. And, like he said, would just sort of work a lot, 2 jobs during the week, all week long, and then take the bus hours to come and take class Saturday and Sunday, and just so committed. And so for me, that's just super inspiring. And when I hear him talk, it reminds me of the practice and that ability that it has to bring a level of acceptance of what is happening, awareness of where I'm feeling it in my body, and a reminder that I am in choice in terms of how I respond. And I feel like he demonstrates that in all the ways that he's now unfolding in this new journey, this sort of second season of life for him. And so for us to be able to continue to connect, and for me to hear sort of what's going on and what's happening, and sort of the way he's navigating continues to be really challenging, right? It's not easy. You spend decades incarcerated, you come out, it doesn't go away. There's a whole new set of challenges, but just his ability to sort of navigate through that is to me sort of a yogi's journey, in the way that he's managing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about that, Leonard? What are some of the things that you're faced with? You're still in the system, right? You're on parole. And people don't realize there's incarceration, then there's parole. You're still in the system.
Yeah, I mean, we call it 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and parole. Just recently, October 17th, I was down in Santa Barbara when I paroled. I was sent down to Santa Barbara County. I was in the program in Santa Maria. Just on the 17th, parole just called me in, just out of the blue, and they just uprooted me. They just told me, "Hey, we're sending you back to your county of last legal resident, Monterey County, to Salinas." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, hold up. I don't live in Monterey. I don't know nobody that live in Monterey. I don't live in Salinas." And they was like, "Well, this is your county of commitment, and you don't have an address on file." So I was forced to leave both of my jobs, my yoga community, friends that I made down in San Luis Obispo County. And it just, so for 3.5 weeks, literally, I was in my car. Thankfully, I bought a car, and I bought the car at the right time, because had I not bought that car, it really would have been challenging, to just trying to lug all my stuff around. And so I was up in Salinas, actually I got to Salinas, and when I got to Salinas, I was in Salinas not even 10 minutes, and they told me to go to San Mateo. So I go to San Mateo. San Mateo tells me there's no parole officer there. You got to go to Santa Clara. So I stayed up in the Bay Area for like 9 days, which something wonderful came out of that experience. But so 9 days up there, and then finally a parole agent did contact me and told me they wasn't accepting the transfer to return back to. So I had to go back to Salinas. I got back to Salinas. I said, "Well, hey, look, I got to feed myself. I got to be able to. Can I go to work?" And it was like, well, if you want to commute to work, you can. So I drove for 8 days. 8 days I went to work. A total of 8 days. I drove from Monterey to Arroyo Grande, where my work site was, 143 miles there and 143 miles back every single day, because I had to be back in Monterey County at 10 p.m. So I would commute. I was commuting for 8 days back and forth. And there were several times when I was down there. What I wanted that weekend, I wanted to go to the studio and do yoga, but they said that I would need a travel pass to do that. So for work, I didn't need a travel pass because it was work. But to go there on the weekend, I would have to get a travel pass, and that's like another whole can of worms. So I basically, I think, like the week before last, so I ended up getting a motel. Judith from California, she got me a motel in Monterey. And so that weekend, I was able to do 2 classes. I was able to do 2 classes virtually. So I logged in, and I was having problems logging in though, but I was able to to do at least 2 classes of yoga, and then it's still been. So then I got moved again. I'm up in Oakland now. Hopefully I'm settled. Hopefully parole will, just let me hit the reset button and just, get employment and, and just get resettled again. And it's just, I'll continue to take my classes virtually. I may find a studio up here, but I just feel connected to my community down there in San Luis Obispo, because I actually missed everyone. I made friends, and we would come to class, and it was like our way of holding one accountable, seeing one another. And when someone's not in class, their presence is missed. That was one thing that I noticed. When someone's not there, you look around and like their energy, their presence is missed, and so it's just, it's a little frustrating, but one of the things that prison has taught me, over 32 years was you get used to being told no. You get used to, the door not being open and this and that. So that experience has allowed me to just be patient, and my approach to life is actually something that you taught me, James, and this is my approach to life. And I may not be saying it right, but it's effortlessly, if you could say it though. But that's my approach. I take, it's like I'm on this river, and so sometimes the river is calm, sometimes there's current, sometimes there's the white waters, and then there's the rapids. But my approach is just, whatever I do, I just got to be still in that moment. Just, effortlessly, and just let life come to me now. I just let life come to me instead of me trying to chase life or make life, bend life to my will. So I let life come to me. And if life throws these challenges at me, I know that's just what they are. They're challenges, and that they're past. So I just have to be patient and just be, still in the moment.
I so appreciate hearing your practicing effortless effort, and it just is such a reminder for me to practice it in my daily life. But I'm just so happy to hear that you retain that. And have incorporated it into your life.
Yeah, because I know I have to, because it's just, to me, it just makes, there are challenges that come up, but when I take that approach, they haven't been so bad. They haven't been so bad or they haven't been overwhelming emotionally or spiritually. It's like the one thing I shy away from, especially what I shied away from over these past few weeks that I was bounced around from county to county, was I shied away from like, oh, I'm being victimized. I didn't take on that energy that I was being a victim. I just saw it as, okay, these are challenges. These are challenges, and what is the lesson to be taken from this experience? Mm-hmm. And I found a way. Well, my thing now is don't let people, circumstances, and things take away your peace and joy. So although I was in transit and I was sleeping in my car, I slept in the, a few parking lots and stuff like that. And I actually slept downtown Monterey a couple of nights. But the one thing I was able to do, I was able to find those little moments where I, like, for instance, I treated myself to a movie. I went to the movie. I said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to I'm going to treat myself to a movie. And I hadn't been to a movie theater in like 30-something years. Mm-hmm. So just to have that experience of going to the movie and watching the movie on the big screen was like, wow. And I stepped out like, man, I needed that, right? So it's just finding those little moments. It's the simple things that, it just brings me back to my center, and that it just renews my peace and joy. That's the whole thing, is that no matter what's thrown at me, it's my responsibility to maintain my peace and joy. Don't let anyone or anything rob me of my peace and joy. Mm-hmm.
So well said. It also reminds me both of what you and Steph have said. And it's kind of a mantra that we have in Prison Yoga Project. And it's, once you join the Sangha, you're in. You're always part of the Sangha, wherever you go. And we're very serious about that. To be able to tap into that community. And it's just so fortuitous that you were able to tap into Steph's community in San Luis Obispo, which is a part of the greater Prison Yoga Project, Sangha, and all the people who are joining us today. So the other thing, what I wanted to touch on with you, Leonard, is you were on the staff of the San Quentin News, correct?
Well, I wrote for the paper. I wasn't actually on the staff, but I did write for the paper for a while. Yes, I wrote for the paper. I took the journalism guild class. I graduated that, and I wrote numerous articles for the paper when I was there. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember some of those articles. And are you going to continue with any of that writing, or?
I'm one of the things I'm going to do is my book. I want to finish my book. My book that I started while I was in the inside. I want to finish my book, and then when I get settled, I'm writing. I'm doing a collaborated project with which will be with friends outside. I'm going to do like a style guide for people, actually more for residents that are returning to society, and just basically like some of the restrictions, some of the do's and don'ts that they can't, because when I was the transit, I had to navigate. There were just certain things I had to do to navigate those few weeks that I was in transit, that parole threw me in transit. And so that's some of the things that I would like to just put kind of like in a resource guide or a style guide, a little pamphlet or something, and let guys that, returning citizens know that, hey, these are some of the things that, especially if you sent to another county and they send you there to take a program, be prepared to be uprooted upon completion of that program. There's no guarantee they're going to keep you there in that county. They're not obligated to keep you there. They can just move you, just like they put you on a bus and transfer you to another institution. Parole can do the same thing. And but it's a lot different out here because, you have your livelihood and things like that. When you're uprooted, it's not like being moved from one institution to another institution. You've been, and they don't care if you actually have residents or non-residents. It's like So those are things that are not conveyed to individuals when they're getting out. And then there's other little things that I wanted to put into like a little resource guide or style guide, whatever, and just let guys know, hey, just not going to happen, but here's what you do if these things do happen. Right. Here's some resources, and here's how to navigate. Here's how to navigate this.
You know, Leonard, your video is kind of bouncing a little bit. I don't know if it's your camera or it's just the video.
Probably my hand. Probably my hand getting tired.
Okay. All right. I just checked.
Yeah.
You know, what reminded me what you were talking about, driving around in your car from county to county to county, is that expression that incarcerated people talk about of being on the bus. And
right.
The whole experience of being on the bus and being transferred from one prison to another prison. Did that ever happen to you?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I was transferred to several different prisons, and there's always, when you're transferred, there's always like, when you transfer, your body, actually your mind and your body is in a state of transit, goes into a state of transition. Because even though you're just going from one institution to another, and you know that some things are like certain, but you don't know who's there, you don't know the program, you don't know who you get to your housing unit, you don't know who you're being housed with, you don't know what the officer in the building, what their pet fees are. So it's just all these things that go in there that you're trying to find out, okay, what type of services, resources do they have at this institution? Do they have groups? Is there a yoga program there? You know what? You may get to be at one institution where you had all these programs like at San Quentin, and then you leave and go to another institution, and they don't have any program except for handcuffs, block gun, and pepper spray. Because everyone's at one another's throat, trying to harm one another. So, and then out here, being in transition, being a transit, like I said, fortunately I had a car, but I know other guys that they were not less fortunate, didn't have a car, and they got uprooted by parole, and so and a lot of guys just go back to what they know. They go back to that criminal. They go back to that criminal lifestyle because it's easy. It's what they know, and I get it. I can see how a person would they would just throw their hands up and just give up and just revert back to. But to me, that never was an option. Even if I didn't have the car, that just never was an option.
Where are you originally from? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Hartsville, South Carolina.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I grew up in South Carolina, and so I was in South Carolina most of my youth, my teenage years, and I left South Carolina and I went to Florida to live with my mom briefly, and then from Florida I ended up going to Job Corps, and I was in Morganfield, Kentucky for about a year. Left there and went to New York, lived in New York for about a year and a half. And then I ended up eventually coming out to California in the early 80s. Yeah.
And what was it like? Yeah, what was it like? What was it like growing up in South Carolina?
Oh, man, South Carolina, there's like a South Carolina, I wrote about my experience growing up in South Carolina, about my childhood. Negligence, I call it negligence of the soul. About, that was my essay that I did, negligence of the soul. And basically I wrote about growing up in the South, the dirty South, as I referred to it as back then, because I grew up in the 60s. And when, racism was really, they still had, signs that said, colored folks go to the back door, colored drinking fountains. And so I grew up with all of this, and they were still doing busing. in fact, my school wasn't even, hadn't been integrated yet. So I grew up in that, but I just remember growing up, around 8, 9 years old, and I'm being called, being called, nigger. And so I'm telling myself, like, as 8 years old, 9 years old, you trying to figure out, like, what the hell did I do? I'm still trying to figure out. I'm 9 years old. I'm still trying to figure out, what this whole life thing is all about, And so it was just, that experience was just, it just showed me at an early age that the ugliness of humanity. It showed me the nastiness and the meanness and of humanity. I didn't know at that age that along the way that I would suffer a disconnect from humanity, from my humanity. And as a result, when you have this disconnect from humanity, you have the capacity to do just about anything because you don't, not only do you don't value yourself, but you don't value others. And so that when you have this disconnect, but that disconnect is really an illusion because you're never really disconnected from your humanity. It's really just an illusion from all of the stuff that you stuff down or all of the energy that you take in. So it blocks that light out. It blocks your light out, and so it's like so you get this illusion that you cut off or that somehow you're separate. I took on that attitude of me against the world. That I was being victimized. And that victimization came from part of it was from racism. Part of it stemmed from racism, but I just took it on that. Life itself was victimizing me, and so as a result, I'm gonna lash out. I want others to feel and experience my pain.
Yeah, that whole expression that we use inside now, hurt people, and understanding how, without the resources of dealing with it, how do you feel it was that was perpetuated while you were in the system?
When I first came in prison, it was, you have gangs, and then there's race, racism is just, it's not so much like was when I first came in. Now, some of the institutions still are, but especially like at San Quentin was, inclusive. Everyone was included, and if you wanted to, as they say, program inside, you had that opportunity to program. They had resources there, and I remember attending the LGBT community there. They remembered. So San Quentin was really embraced everyone, but you have other institutions where it's not so like that. But racism was it still exists in prison, and it's perpetuated by a small number of people, because most guys nowadays, especially old timers, guys are just trying to go home, man. I mean, they're trying to go home and be with their family. They're trying to restart rebuild their lives. It's just, it's, you see, because you get enough, you see enough of the ugliness, and so at some point, I had asked myself, I said, you know what? That was one thing during COVID. It was like, there's a thing in prison, like, I don't think most people in prison don't have a fear of dying, but like the worst fear is to die in prison. That's like a fear that's like compounded. Like dying is one thing, but that fear of dying in prison, that's like, and so, and then with me, it was like, not only did I want to die in prison, but I said, I'm not going to die in prison, but I also refuse to die in the state that brought about my incarceration. So that's when I really began to just dive in and just do the work and get involved in programs, doing yoga, things that I know that would connect me, you know. Like I say, yoga, I always thought yoga was for sissies, but when I started doing yoga, and then I realized that it was much more than just doing some stretches. It's way deeper than that. It's mind, body, spirit. It's connecting you back to your center, and that all these little things. And so when I'm in that space, when I'm doing yoga, it's like that's self-care. That's self-care. That's one form of self-care, but it's self-care where I'm like, my sister is a minister in South Carolina, and my sister's like, do you go to church? And I said, no, but I go to yoga though. She's like, yoga? Yeah. I said, yeah, yoga. She said, I said, yeah, I go to yoga. And then my sister didn't know anything about yoga. And so honestly, I was explaining to her, and then I was explaining to her that, yoga is about, it's about honoring yourself, and it's for you, and it's about, also not just honoring yourself, but also seeing the light in others, and just, and so I was telling my sister, and then she was like, oh, so she got a little bit of understanding that it was just more than just doing some stretches, and I told her, yeah.
Yeah.
So she was.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of family, I understand you recently reconnected with your children. Yes, that was what I said when I was up here for those. I think I was up for like maybe 9 days up in the Bay Area, 10 days. I was able. What good came out of that experience was I was with my daughter, who I'd seen in 32 years, and she's a grown woman with 8 kids of her own, and so she wanted to rent a car, but she didn't have a credit card. So I said, okay, I'll let you use my credit card. We're gonna rent you a car. So we were at that. We went to her, well, not her. Then we went to the airport. I forgot what Avis, one of those. I think it was Avis. So we go to the airport to pick up the car, and right as we get to the counter, her mucus plug break. A water break, and so I had to drive her to the hospital. I took her to San Francisco General, and so I was able to be there for the birth of my of one of my granddaughters. So that beautiful. How beautiful!
Yeah. So it's funny how even though Pro uprooted me, it's something, like I said, something good came out of that. Something wonderful came out of that.
Well, it seems to me like there's something that's guiding you in these different directions that you've earned from, your own yoga or other things you've learned from your own personal practice of your inner journey with yourself.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I've been blessed because for some reason, it's like when I let go all of the ugliness, when I reconnected with myself, with my true self, and as my light started to shine, it's like Spirit brought all these different people on my journey with me, you, Stephanie, and Amanda, and so many other wonderful people that I met in other different programs, and it's just like, and it's funny that all of the friends that I have, maybe like one or two that I met down in San, but almost all of my friends are people who volunteer or work in some capacity in the Department of Corrections, or they were my ex-cellie, he got out like 2 months after me. And I connected with him the other day. I didn't even know he called, and he had given me my number, and he found it, and he called, and it was funny. And he was like, I'm like, where are you at? Where did they send you? He says, I'm in San Francisco. I say, you are? I say, me too, because I'm downtown at the Muni building right now. So I went and connected with him, and it was just funny that that how just how things when you just I don't know. It just seems like I can't explain it. It's just like when you just have that when you have that positive energy, positive experiences come your way.
Yeah. Yeah. So well said. So well said. Well, I think what we'll do is I just so appreciate this conversation and really value it, really value it. And I think maybe what we'll do is open things up. So if people who have joined us can ask any questions or say hello. So Blair, are you with us? You can open things up.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just about to type into the chat that people can put their questions either into the chat or if you're on your desktop or a laptop, there should be a black bar at the bottom of your screen, and then there's a Q&A box. And so you should be able to put any of your questions that you have for anyone on the screen into this box. We can read it out loud and we can direct your question. And actually, I have a question I would love to pose for Steph as well. While people are kind of warming up the chat for us, I would love for you to speak about, being a yoga studio owner and really having kind of inclusive policies and how can you support other yoga studios by welcoming everyone, bringing everyone in.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. It's one of those things where we try to be really intentional with the things that the words that we use, the way that we talk about the studio. I send out a newsletter pretty frequently and share a lot about what I'm up to and what we value as a studio. And, we just try to make sure that's clear in the way that we offer things, the way that we message things. And you sort of do the best that you can to create that is our yoga practice is, that ability to welcome people, provide a container for people for their journey, whatever stage of the journey that they're in. But you don't always know how that's going to sort of land and come across to people. And I think that, this is just a really wonderful example of people just knowing that what we're about as studio owners, what we value, and that we are stewards of a practice that we didn't create, but that has given us a lot of benefits and has provided a lot of healing for us. And the way that we can best give back is to share that with others. And that's what I have seen happen, in this situation with Leonard. He was really good about bringing people along too and wanting to share this practice. So he would bring people with him to class. And I think that's just amazing that the more that you do that, when you feel welcome, bring other people in and share that with them. And I think that has been just a really great thing to see in the community. So it started from us just sharing my stories, my experiences, sharing about what we value and that we are a place that is welcoming to everyone. But really nice to see that happen and to have had that be the experience, the felt experience that people have had.
Did we lose you, Blair?
No, I'm here. I didn't know if you wanted me to guide or not. I just put in the chat. Thank you so much, Steph, for that really compassionate and thoughtful response as well. And I really loved how you just spoke to that is part of our yoga practice. That is yoga. So thank you for embodying that as a studio owner too.
Well, Leonard, now you got some sunshine on your face. I can really see you now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So far.
Yeah, I'm just sitting down.
No, yeah, keep telling us.
Go ahead.
No, I said I chose this location right here. At first I was like, we're doing a webinar, and I was like, I didn't want to do it in my room at the program. I was like, that's just too, it's too stale for the webinar, and I was like, I want to go out into nature and because, that's what yoga is about, connecting to nature and everything, connecting to yourself. So I was like, where could I go that will give me, that backdrop that would, give a sense of freedom, a sense of freedom and a sense of connectedness. And so I was like, you know what? Ferry building, because this is the first place I came when I got out. I caught the ferry from San Quentin. I was telling all the guys, I'm going to catch the ferry, And it was like, no, you're not. You can't catch the ferry. And and so I did. I was able to catch the ferry, and I caught the ferry to the ferry building. So I thought, you know what? I'd come here, and this would be wonderful. And it is. It is. It's a beautiful day, and it's people are out, enjoying themselves and just experiencing life. And I think that's really what life is all about. It's about experiencing life, and about even those experiences that you don't have any control over, that life may come your way, is that that your power lies in your attitude of how you meet that experience. That's your free will. Your free will. That's the only thing we have control of, is how we respond to things, our attitude of how we respond to things. That's something that no one can take away from us.
We've totally agree. Thank you, Leonard.
We have so much love happening in the chat. So earlier, our participant, Zoe, said, welcome home, Leonard. We have...
Thank you.
Leonard and Stephanie, thank you so much for your time and sharing your journeys. You're both inspiring. And then, James, you want me to read out these couple questions that we have in here?
Sure, please.
Okay. Yeah. Dear Leonard, love and bliss from Holland. First of all, congratulations on your journey. You are a real yogi to me. Many people would love to be at the place you are at right now. You are an example for all of us. You are yoga. Thank you for sharing your story. What I would like to ask is, what kind of advice would you offer for yoga teachers who would like to start teaching in prisons?
Well, I would say the first thing I would say is just approach it with an open mind, open heart, an open spirit. And because, that you're going to, out in the free world, you're going to always get the different version of what people are like, individuals are like in prison. But when you go in and you start and you put a face to these individuals and you start meeting these people, and you start to see their humanity, and you start to see that these are men or women that have some who made verbal mistakes, horrendous mistakes, but they're trying to find their way back. They're trying to find their way back. So my advice would just to be open-minded, and whatever you do, have fun. Have fun, you know what I mean? 'Cause that's my goal for it. And regardless of where I am, what I'm doing, hey, I'm gonna find an opportunity to enjoy life.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I think incorporating joy and play into all we do, right? And service, to be able to go in and support other people through yoga. Being rooted in joy. Thank you for that reminder. And actually I kind of want to invite that question to either James and Steph as well. People thinking about going in and starting a program or going in and volunteering, if you guys have any advice too.
I would say for me that it is that it's sort of been a great opportunity to be in your practice and coming back to sort of that interconnectedness that Leonard spoke about, that at the level of humanity, we're all sort of navigating through uncertainty, emotion, sometimes fear, anxiety, all those different things. And my experience in teaching at the California Men's Colony has been, from the intentional way that we set up the room where we practice in a circle all together, it's like we're healing all alongside each other. And that's been my experience. So it's one of those things where all of the other things that you might be nervous about or uncertain about sort of fade away because you come to this level of we're all connected. And it's that reminder, and that we're all in a place of choice, because you are in an environment where it's unpredictable. There's not a lot of sort of pre-planning you can do. You sort of have to just go in knowing that what will unfold in the way that it's meant to. And so you sort of just let go of expectation and just show up to do your best and be there and be present and with your breath and with your body. And that creates the experience in the moment unfolding. And it's just an environment where it allows you to experience that in a different way than you might from a studio environment. And so I recommend it. It's been a joy for me to be able to do that over the last few years.
Thanks so much, Steph. James, any advice from you?
Well, one thing that's obvious, and unless it's one of the beauties about our trainings, in that it gives people an orientation. When I first started going into San Quentin 20 years ago, other than having worked with youth at risk and from a couple of years of experience in doing that, I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have any training. And I think what's happened over the years, not only my experience, but the collective experience of many people who've been doing this work, we've got this kind of body of work that we can share with people. And then the other thing that comes up for me, and Steph touched on it also, one of the very core understandings of yoga is non-dualism. And to me, that translates as equanimity, in that I may come from a different background than most of the people who are incarcerated, but it gives me the opportunity to practice equanimity and really meet people and share what we really have in common. And so, for instance, how would I have ever met Leonard out here in society? And I say this sincerely, and had the privilege to meet this human being, and to have the understanding through yoga that beyond persona, beyond personality, beyond history, where we connect is in what Leonard has talked so much about today, about discovering his true self. And when we say namaste, right? When we say namaste with one another, we're honoring that true self in one another and that connection that we have with one another. So there's no way that I could fully share with you the rewards of being able to go and do this kind of work. And it comes down to the rewards of service that are available, not just going into prisons and teaching yoga, but the real rewards of karma yoga, of being of service, whether you're a parent and your service is to your children, whether it's service to your community, whether it's service to your friends, that this is available to us, and that it's such an enriching opportunity of being alive.
Thank you so much, James. Next question for Leonard. One of our participants is asking, what resources were you given, really, if any, upon your reentry? Like, were you guided towards support groups? Like, what does reentry look like?
Well, I was fortunate. Because I had gotten with the California reentry program, and initially when I was getting ready to parole, they were trying to send me to Monterey County, to Salinas, where they don't really have that many resources. And so, just like at the last minute, at the 11th hour, the California reentry program, Judith Tata, she was able to get me into a program down in Santa Maria, down in Santa Barbara County. So I was fortunate because I was in a transitional program that was clean. It was a safe space. They had, they were drivers that would take you to your appointments, the Social Security office, help get your ID and stuff like that. So I was, some people are fortunate when they get out, they do get into programs, and I would encourage guys to take advantage of these resources and programs. But lately funding has been so tight, so a lot of these programs are scaling back. But so I was fortunate that I got into a program, and I worked the program. I took advantage of the resources. I got to work. I got a job 2 weeks, literally after I was out. So I got a job. I went to work right away, and then I ended up eventually I got another second. I took a second job, and so I was kind of like steered towards resources and stuff like that. But that's not the case for so many though that are getting out. And then but you have to advocate for yourself though. You have to, whenever parole or they tell you no, you have to advocate for yourself. You can't take no for an answer. You have to advocate for yourself, and that's why it's important to join, like the Insight Garden program, the Prison Yoga Project, where you have this community, that sense of community, that thing that, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, that applies to when you're adult. You need a community, just having, just when I was in transit those few weeks, it wasn't so much money. Yes, I needed money, for gas and to eat, but just having that mental and spiritual support, and just knowing that I had this community that I could reach out to. I talked to Steph, and I talked to a few other people, and so I was just like, keeping people updated of what I was going through, and it wasn't to complain, but it was just so nice to have that community there. I had that sense, and that's all I was on parole. Like, hey man, I had 2 jobs. I had my yoga community. Look, man, it's more than just moving me, man. You move me. It's not like you just sending me to another institution, man. I mean, I'm leaving friends. I'm leaving my yoga community. I'm leaving. I got to tell my employers that I can't work for them no more. I mean, it's like, and that's not me. I'm not a person that up and just quit and just leave and walk away. That's not me. I invest in my friendships. Everything I do, I give it 110%. When I was in prison, someone told me one time, said, "Hey, man, you're an asshole." And I said, "I know." I said, "My mom told me though, boy, whatever you do, be the best at it." So I was giving 110%, no matter what. So yeah, it was just, so I was fortunate that I was steered towards resources, but that is not the case for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I put the link in the chat too for the California reentry program. I actually was not aware of that program, so I'm going to go into that. Thank you.
Yeah, they do amazing work. They do. Judith Tata, she's amazing. She didn't stop until she got me housed.
Yeah.
She did not. She stayed on parole. She called them. She called Sacramento, and I think they just got tired of her calling, and they put this guy somewhere so she can stop calling us. Yeah.
Well, I think unless people have any more questions, I feel full myself. I mean, really full and satisfied with our time together. Steph, you have anything else?
No, I just so appreciate the opportunity to come and share and have this conversation with both of you. And Leonard, looking forward to having you back in SLO at some point to come and practice in person. But so glad that you're still with us online. And Leonard's just been, I would say, just a really good teacher to me, and have really appreciated getting to know him and him sharing the practice and being part of the community. And so it's been an incredible experience. I'm very grateful.
And thank you too, Steph. I'm so glad that I stumbled across your studios. You know what I mean? But I would say stumble. I just think Spirit just guided me there, and it was just like, it was just like right away. As soon as I got there, it's like, man. And I remember Matt told me I could go up on the balcony, and I went up on the balcony, and I was like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be at. I'm just where I'm supposed to be, and it's just, and everyone at the studio, all of the members, it's just everyone just embraced me, and they just embraced me, and I just felt right away. I felt like a part of the community, and everyone embraced me, and I miss everyone. And that's just one of the things that, like I said, I have to stay away from that. Careful to stay away from that I'm being victimized. But it bothers me that I was just uprooted and just taken away from what I had built, what I had accomplished since I got out. I was asked to do certain things, and I did everything that parole asked me to do in some, but it's like, okay, now here you go, and it's like, it just really, I was really, hurt that I've been taken away, from my employers, from my yoga community, from the friends that I made down there, and it's just like, I mean, I can adjust and I can navigate, but I like the Central Coast, so I'll certainly be back. and I'll certainly be back, and I'm certainly going to come and visit because I can get travel passes. So I'm certainly going to come down. Even if I just come down maybe once a month and just do the classes in person. So yeah, but I'll definitely. It's like I was telling I did, and then I didn't like the fact that I didn't get a chance to really. Not so much say goodbye to people, but just have a conversation with them and let them know that I'm being moved away, but it's not by my choice. So,
well, I look forward to staying in touch, Leonard, and hopefully we'll be able to get together.
Yeah, I'm up here with you now.
Yeah, all right. Okay, well, yeah, we'll just stay in touch, and of course, if there's anything I can do to support you in any way, I got your back.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and thank everyone, and thank you for this opportunity for being able to share my experience, and to just to share what yoga meant to me, because yoga is important to me. And yoga is not just, it's more than a bunch of stretches. It's more than, that's what I would just tell people out there. It's more than just doing a few simple stretches. It really is. It's really, and the breathing part of yoga is really, really important. The breath, because the breath is life. The breath, breathing and just being conscious of your breath. Just that little simple thing, just sometimes I just sit up straight and just take a few deep breaths and just center myself and just connect. Just something simple like that just brings me, it just brings that connectedness to life, to the universe.
Absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful way to end.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Blair, I think that closes us out. If you're good with it.
I'm so happy. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Leonard, for making the time and coming on. Thank you, Steph. I just love hearing about the simplicity and all of the beauty. And I hope we all get to practice one day. Hopefully that will be something that we can do. We can bring everyone in Prison Yoga Project together to share stories and be together. But for now, we have this virtual space. So everyone, thank you so much for coming out on your Saturday and being with us really all around the world. And we are so grateful.
Yeah. And
thank you.
Yeah. And a special thanks to Stephanie too. Thank you so much, Steph.
Yeah.
Thanks for your
thank you, Steph.
For your dedication and for your heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Leonard. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Blair, for the opportunity, and happy to be part of this community.
Yeah. Thank you, Steph. And I will see you soon.
Yeah. We'll talk soon.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Love and light to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.